Assalamu alaikum everyone. Have you ever wondered why Pakistan was separated from the subcontinent? Why do people with similar thinking and similar outlooks in life need their own space, their own lab, their own separate homeland? इस सवाल का जवाब आपको अपनी आज की ज़िंदगी पे गौर करने से मिलेगा. What kind of a person are you? What do you want to become? कौन सी यूनिवर्सिटी में एडमिशन लेना चाहते हैं? लाइफ में आप बनना क्या चाहते हैं? The reality, students, is that you have the freedom and the opportunity to answer these questions. Imagine two families living together under the same roof. Often उनके बीच में मुख्तलिफ नज़रियों पे लड़ाइयाँ हो जाती हैं. साथ रहना तकलीफ दे होता है. And this can often result in separation, यानी अपने अपने रास्तों पे चलने का decision. This allows you to survive on your ideology, your philosophy of life. आप अपनी लाइफ का खुद ही नक्शा खींच सकते हैं. And that was perhaps exactly what happened 70 years ago in the subcontinent. देखें, different states and nations exist separated from one another because they want their own space so that they can lead their own lives independently. और ये जो ideas और ये जो principles हैं जिन पे these states are based upon, these are called ideologies या नज़रिए, जो भी लफ्ज़ आप पसंद करें. Back then, कायद-ए-आज़म मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना was trying to give a practical shape to Allama Iqbal's ideology that Muslims need a separate homeland. लेकिन उनका हमेशा से ऐसा नज़रिया नहीं था. In fact, कायद-ए-आज़म initially wanted Muslims and Hindus to cooperate with one another. And he bitterly opposed any call, any ideology that viewed the Hindus and Muslims as separate or different from one another. In the Lucknow Pact, his political efforts brought the All India Muslim League and the Indian National Congress together on the same platform so that they could present their ideologies on a political reform to the British. और इसी वजह से उनको एक टाइटल भी दिया गया, एम्बेसडर ऑफ हिंदू मुस्लिम यूनिटी. लेकिन जैसे जैसे वक्त गुजरता रहा, उनको मुसलमानों का फ्यूचर इस सेटलमेंट में वाजे होने शुरू हो गया. फर्स्टली, मुस्लिम्स को एक माइनॉरिटी की तरह लिया जा रहा था. एंड सेकेंडली, द रिलीजियस एंड कल्चरल डिफरेंसेस वर एक्चुअली रिजल्टिंग इन एक्ट्स ऑफ वॉर एंड टेरर बिटवीन एवरी cultural and religious group. उनको ये बात देखकर क्लियर हो गया कि while he was once a supporter of Hindu-Muslim unity, but it was time कि the Muslims had their own separate homeland, where like-minded individuals could live governing themselves instead of having a government that would disregard their freedom to practice their own beliefs and values. कायद-ए-आज़म ने खुद ही कहा कि the Muslims are a nation by every right to establish their separate homeland. They can adopt any means to promote and protect their economic, social, political, and cultural interests. Just take a look at what the condition of Muslims was in the subcontinent. इन पिक्चर से वाज़े होता है कि मुसलमान और हिंदू लोगों का एक साथ रहना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता. They were not having a separate identity where they could move freely or adopt any way they want. For Muslims, it was difficult to adopt the Islamic way of life, to have all their human rights recognized, and to have the freedom to go to mosques to offer prayer. The Muslims needed to be recognized in a separate homeland, where perhaps the only way they could practice their own values and beliefs was being out of these circumstances. उनको एक separate nation और एक सेपरेट स्टेट के लिए मुत्तफिक होना था। अच्छा, ये तो हमें थोड़ी सी हिस्ट्री का पता चला, बट लेट्स डू अ लिटिल एक्टिविटी ओवर हियर। हम एक रफ नोटबुक पे एक क्वेश्चन के बारे में पॉन्डर करते हैं, एंड दैट क्वेश्चन इज, किन किन रीजंस पे एक सेपरेट आइडियोलॉजी फॉर्म हो सकती है फॉर अ नेशन? टेक 5 minutes and write it down. The teacher can pause the video here if he or she wishes. See, एक नेशन के लिए दे आर एक्चुअली 4 रीजंस या 4 सोर्सेज जिनकी बिना पे एक आइडियोलॉजी फॉर्म हो सकती है, एक सेपरेट आइडियोलॉजी। जैसे कि रिलीजन, उनका अपना रिलीजन, एक अपनी रेस, एक अपनी लैंग्वेज और अपने पॉलिटिकल और कल्चरल पर्पसेस। बकौल हमारे कायदे आज़म के, जिन्होंने कहा पाकिस्तान को हासिल करना सिर्फ एक ज़मीन हासिल करने का सवाल नहीं बल्कि एक लेबॉरेटरी का सवाल था जिसमें हम अपनी इस्लामिक प्रिंसिपल्स और लॉज की वैलिडिटी को प्रूव करने के लिए आज़ाद हों। तो इस आइडियोलॉजी की बुनियाद पे पाकिस्तान बना। इनको हम एक्सप्लोर करते हैं, इस आइडियोलॉजी में एक्चुअली है क्या। फॉर वन थिंग, वी नीडेड Islamic principles, right? We needed the freedom to practice those Islamic principles however we wanted. Secondly, we were urging for a democratic state. Thirdly, we wanted social justice. No war, no terror, just freedom, peace, the freedom to have or to live our own lives the way we want. And lastly, just basic human rights. See, when two nations are in opposition with one another, human rights tend to be ignored. And there's a lot of bloodshed. So with this ideology in mind, today we are a free nation. We are living in this homeland without any restrictions. और आज हमारी ideology के सारे components हमारे पास हैं, by the goodness of Allah Almighty. Pakistan today is what a separate homeland looks like. Okay बच्चों, ये तो हमारा lesson का end हुआ. Why not look at some of the key points within this lesson so we remember? Firstly, states and nations are surviving because they have some purpose, they have ideas, or they have a single motivated discipline or decision on which they are surviving. Secondly, ideas and principles upon which states are based is basically called our ideology. या तो उर्दू में आप नज़रिया बुला लें. These are political and social philosophies upon which civilizations are based. Previously, Muslims did not have a separate identity where they could move freely, adopt the Islamic way of life, have their human rights be the way they want, and to go to mosques for offering prayer. So it was very important for them to have a motivational force to want a separate homeland. That was the reason the concept of ideology was given. Sources of our ideology are common religion, common language, common race, and common political customs. The basic components that separates Pakistan's ideology from the rest are firstly Islamic principles, secondly a democratic state, thirdly social justice, and fourthly human rights. Why don't we have a little quiz now? Open up your notebook and carefully read the instructions. When you think about the word ideology, write any 3 synonyms or similar words that come into your mind. You could also search the dictionary to help you with this little activity. Secondly, we have to choose the best answer. The word democracy means नज़रिया, तालीम या फ़िक्र? How many components of ideology are explained in this lecture? Were they 4, 6, or 8? We are leading blank way of life in our country. Is it Islamic, Western, or any of our choice? Let's match the column. The first column says sources of ideology, and you need to match it with the column on the right. Then we have components of ideology. Then we have basic principles of Pakistani ideology.